Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session where we talk about what's new in Business Central clients for AL developers. I am Erida Nurce.
And I'm Vasil Illiev.
And we're both software engineers in the Business Central clients team. So during this session, you will learn how to unlock the latest user productivity features, such as actionable error messages from AL code. You'll also discover which new features your users can enjoy without you writing a single new line of AL code, such as analysis mode, access keys, and more. Additionally, you will also get an exclusive view of what new APIs we're planning for the autumn release. So a brief look at our agenda for today. Of course, we're going to talk about features that you already see and can use with Business Central version 22. But then again, we also have some exciting things coming straight from the lab and being unveiled here for the first time. We don't want to tell you what those are yet, so we'll just keep the suspense going for a little bit longer. Let's get started with the first item of the day, and that is access keys with key tips. So access keys boost your productivity in Business Central with quick and easy keyboard access to navigation and actions on any page. You might be already familiar with this feature as you've seen or used it in other Microsoft 365 products, such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so many more. But let's go and see how this works within Business Central and why it does boost your productivity. Whoopsie. Okay, I'm now in Business Central in my role center. Of course, your first question is, how do I get to see these access keys or key tips? Well, all you need to do is press Alt on the keyboard, and you will see these characters popping up next to your navigation menu, so your navigation groups, or the links that you have bookmarked to pages that you use very often, and also next to the actions. We call these characters key tips. And what key tips do is they allow you to press one character in your keyboard to invoke the item that they're shown next to. So let's say I want to start a new purchase order in my actions. I will press X on my keyboard, and you'll see that the key tips will appear for everything under the actions. And if I wanted to start a purchase quote, I would just press P here. But let's say I don't want to do that, and I want to go back to navigation. So how do I get back to that previous context? What you need to do is just press Escape on the keyboard. You're back up a level where you started. So for navigation, I will press J, because apparently all of them start with J. And we'll go back to this later and explain why all of them start with J. Let's go into sales, and you'll see the group is expanded, key tips appear for everything under sales. I want to go on to customers, press C. Okay, in the customers list, yet again, you have your navigation menu. You have your action bar. You can use key tips again. Just press Alt, and you see key tips popping up. Now, what do I want to do here? Well, for the customer that is already selected, I want to start a new sales quote. You can easily do that by pressing N, as we see new document has a key tip N, and then we press S for sales quote. You're on to starting your new sales quote, and then again, the sales quote, you have an action bar, you can use key tips again. Well, that's great. We can use key tips. But how do they help us? Well, when you have daily flows that you do very often, it's very easy to memorize the access keys to that flow. So let's say we started a new sales quote with Alt-NS. If I do that very fast on the keyboard, I'm already starting my sales quote even faster than it would have took me to go there with my mouse, or even worse, with the keyboard, tabbing, and using your arrows back and forth. So that's how you can be very efficient using key tips. Okay, apparently they're great, they're useful, they help us so much. What do you need to do for your customers to be able to use key tips? Well, nothing really, except get them on the latest version, which is version 22. We generate key tips on the platform, and you don't need to write a single line of AL code to get key tips. Okay, that's great. Now, how are key tips determined by us? Well, we use the action's caption, or if there's no caption, the action's name. And typically, for the actions that we want you to get to first in the page, you will see the shorter key tips that are just one character long. So we see that now for home, new document, and you can also see that the key tip is typically the first letter in the word or the first letter in the second word. There's also some cases, my resolution is quite high here, and you cannot see the rest. But yeah, there's also some cases, if I go into more, where report, for example, we have the key tip T. And you see that it's not the first or the second character, and why is that? Well, for some of the actions that we know that customers use very often throughout pages, we want to make sure that we have consistency in different pages so that you always use your access keys in the same way. And therefore, we have a few preferred key tips that we assign to actions. You also see that, as we said before, for navigation groups, they started with J. For the action groups here, they start with X. If I go back up a level with escape, you'll see for some of our system actions, they start with Z. Why that is because we want to give you a context when using key tips. So if you're into navigation, you press J, and you only have the subset of the context that you want to go to. Okay, we learned about key tips, how we generate them. Let's go back and see a quick cheat sheet on how you can use key tips. So we said we can open the key tip mode with Alt. You can move around by either activating key tips with a character that is shown on the keyboard, or you can even use your navigation with the arrows up, right, left, and so on. And of course, exit key tips by using Alt. As we saw, the feature is available for navigation menus, navigation links, the primary action bar, and the role center actions. Of course, if we see that you love the feature, we will try and expand it in the future. Now we come back to a point where you know about shortcuts. We use the keyboard to invoke actions, but also access keys. We use the keyboard to invoke actions. What's the difference and why you need both of them? Well, keyboard shortcuts are defined in AL by developers, whereas when it comes to access keys, they're generated by the platform. And given that your keyboard shortcuts are defined by you in AL, they're only available for those select actions that you defined them on. But for access keys, they're assigned to all the actions in the page. Going back to keyboard shortcuts, since you defined them, the same action will have the same shortcut in all pages that it's shown in. For access keys, as we showed before, the key tip that is assigned or the access key that is assigned, it depends on where your action is shown. So if there was an action, we have print and post, for example. They both start with P. If post is shown first, then it takes P, and print, for example, will take R. That's something. And therefore, since position determines access keys, that means that when you move actions left and right, their access key might change. But keyboard shortcuts, of course, are not affected by personalization. Now, when we talk about personalization, what else do you have to share, Vasil?
Thanks, Erida. So previously, actions in parts were determined by AL, and users didn't have the opportunity to organize their actions in parts the way that they wanted. So that in order to do that, it required writing new extensions. So in version 22, we enabled personalization mode for action bar in parts. So if we go to the product now, and we enable personalization mode, we can see the same designer experience for the action bar in parts as for the main action bar. So this is built on the same capability as the main action bar, which means that you get support for split buttons and, of course, teaching tips, which means that you can now write onboarding and teaching tips for your actions in parts. So in order to get an easy access to actions, you can promote split buttons on the root level, or you can drag and drop an action into the manage group, as the manage group is the pinned group by default when you access the page. So since we introduced personalization of actions in parts, we also added a more granular clearing of personalization. But be aware that if you clear personalization in parts, it will reflect on every place that you reuse this page. And this feature is only available when the modern action bar feature is turned on. So if you haven't done that already, make sure to flip the switch and give the feature a try. So what else do we have for productivity?
So another boost that we're giving to your productivity for your users is being able to analyze data on list pages. This allows you to quickly extract insights from your data in Business Central without having to switch to a different app, run a report, or involve your developers to write a new report. When you analyze data, you can design filters, columns, grouping, and pivots. You can save your work across different tabs. You can find column totals, copy all your data, and import it to Excel, PowerPoint, and anywhere else you need. Let's start with noting that this feature needs to be enabled via feature management. So I'll go into the product and see how we can use analysis mode. When you're in a list page in Business Central, you'll know that this feature is enabled when you see the Analyze toggle shown on the action bar. To get into analysis mode, all you need to do is just enable this toggle. When we are in analysis mode, you no longer see the actions that we had on the action bar, because we want you to be able to focus on analyzing your data instead of manipulating it. So when I start analyzing, I will, let's say, start a new tab, because that is my old analysis. I typically like to start by clearing up all the view and starting from scratch. Now let's say a few terms first. When you're analyzing, this area over here, as I explained with the tabs, is called the tabs pane. You have your data area, where you can see all the data from your list. And of course, you have your field modifier area over here to the right that I expanded right now. So as I said, I like to start from a clean slate. I will just double-click this checkbox and then get rid of all the columns that I was showing. I'm in my customer ledger entries, and I'm interested in seeing what customer is generating the most revenue for me. So I will start doing that by first looking at what columns I'm interested in. That would be the document number, for example, the customer number or name. Maybe the name makes more sense. I'm not a machine. And then, of course, I want to look at the amounts for all my invoices or document numbers and the remaining amounts. Okay, now I can see the data that I'm actually interested in analyzing. You also have some quick insights to see that you have 416 rows in this list. And of course, that is a long list to scroll. So we don't want to do that. How I can help myself is, of course, I can group my list by a certain column. And how I do that is, if I want to, I'm interested in what customer, right? So I want to see what customer is generating what revenue. I would go and drag and drop the customer name into the row groups, and you will already see that everything is immediately grouped. Now that looks good. You can, of course, select your data to find out what is the minimum revenue from a certain customer, the maximum, but of course, you can also do that by sorting, and I can see that the School of Fine Art is the highest revenue, and then trade research gives me the lowest revenue. So that's looking good. Maybe you can see that also some columns do not have enough space to show the whole title. How you can fix that, of course, as in Excel, you can make the column wider, or you can wrap your column headers to see all the text, or of course, you can also auto-size all your columns to fit. Now that looks good for the first part of my analysis, but maybe I want to get a bit more granular and look at the data throughout different quarters. And how I do that, well, I'll go back into modifying my columns and my groupings. And since I'm interested in looking at all these data based on the dates, I want to go into pivot mode and find out a bit more. So when it comes to working with dates, Business Central enables you to not only look at the exact dates, but also look at the year that the item or invoice was posted on. You can look at the quarter or the month. So I want to do an analysis on quarters, as we said. Of course, I would select that column to show up, and then I want to pivot on it. So again, we use drag and drop to get the quarter and push it over to the column labels, and you can see that Q1 already showed up in here. Now, I also want to do the analysis on quarters for each year. So I'll also select that year, that column called year, and drag it over to the column labels that I'm pivoting on. Of course, they accidentally showed up here for me, but it's very easy to remove them from the grouping, as you have your row groups right here, and I'm not interested in grouping by quarter or year, so we'll remove them. Okay, so I have my data, and you can expand and collapse to look into it. There's so much that I have to horizontally scroll. Well, as we said, you don't need to do that. Of course, use the auto size option for all columns to fit, and I have a bit too much. So I'll collapse again and make my columns a bit bigger. Okay, so that's looking good. I can look at how every quarter looks for different data. I think I added too many columns to this because amount is somehow in here twice. Very easy to fix. This is also in here twice. Then I have some leftover filters that I'm not interested in. But of course, the fix is just get rid of anything you're not interested in. So I'm looking then at the different quarters within a year. If I want to actually compare how quarter 1 is doing between different years, all you have to do is switch the order that you put them in the column labels, and I'm more interested in quarters throughout different years, and you see in quarter 1 for year 2021, 2022, and so on. So it's very quick, very efficient. I can go straight into exporting this data and sending it to my partners, and so on. So this looks great because it allows your customers to do data analysis very efficiently. But you can also analyze data based on what your customers are analyzing data on. That sounds a bit like a brain teaser. What I want to say is that you can see if your customer and how your customer is using data analysis by heading over to our Power BI usage reports and going into client actions, as you see over here, looking at usage across customers for client features such as data analysis, and you can also go deeper into this data to see on which pages your customers analyze data on to be able to give them more tailored reports per user or per page. Now, when we talk about working with data, bulk data entry and working manually with data very easily leads to errors. So Vasil will tell us a bit more on how we help customers in that case.
So errors are a great cause of loss of efficiency and contribute to poor user experience. And this is mainly because error messages are often cryptic. So let's go to Business Central, and I'm on a sales order that is of status release. But I want to change the contact. I perform that modification, and then I counter this issue. And to most of you, this is enough to understand what needs to be done. But to a regular user, this seems a bit cryptic, a bit robotic, because they need to discover that they need to access the release tab and then reopen an order. So what can you do in order to improve this and make your users more productive? So in version 22, we added first of all, let's take a look at what the code does at the moment. So we subscribe to this event where we test the status of a sales header, and if it's not of a status open, then we just throw an error to stop execution. But in version 22, we introduced 2 new APIs on the error info object, which are add action and add navigation action. So how can you help your users be more productive? So right from here, you can add a more user-friendly message that you can explain to the user why they encountered this error. And you can add an action to help them resolve the problem right there from the error dialog. So what this method accepts is the caption of the action that you want to display, the code unit ID, and the procedure name that resolves the error on behalf. So I've written a small procedure in here that reopens a sales document where I get the sales record by the system ID, and then I perform a manual reopen. So I can go ahead and then copy the name of the method and then just add it to the action, and then just throw the error. So let's see how this looks like now. I perform the same thing, go to change the contact, and then I see this. So I think we can all agree that this looks much better than previously. So the users can just reopen the order right from here without losing any context, and then go ahead and then just perform the modification that they initially wanted to. But we saw another method, which was add navigation action. So let's take this example. I want to go to the warehouse pigs page, and then I navigate to it, and then I encounter this. So a bit better user message, but I'm still confused, like, wait, what do I do? How do I resolve? Where do I go from here? Well, what's currently happening is, again, we have a subscriber that every time that we check for if the user is a warehouse employee, and if it's not, we just throw the error. But this is not that straightforward. It requires a bit decision on user side. So what can we do in this case? So in here, we can add a navigation action. We can help the user to the next step of resolving the error. So this method accepts just the caption name, but you need to remember to pass on the page number where you want to take the user. And of course, maybe improve the error message too. So if we go here, and then I perform the same steps, I want to go to warehouse pigs, and then we see this. Much better. So I can go from the context of what I wanted to do right here to perform the steps that I need to do in order to resolve the error. So how do you get to use it yourself? So when you get to decide how to help the user resolve the error and how to use these two methods, you need to think about two things. So in order to use add action, you need to be certain of the expected outcome, how to resolve the error. So we saw the example for the sales document. We knew exactly that the status needed to be opened. So instead of relying on the user to go and find the action where they can do it, you can just hand them the solution and make them more productive. But for the navigation action, like, it requires a bit more decision on the user side. Like, there are multiple steps that it's not that straightforward to solve. But remember, when using the add navigation action, if you're not certain that the user has permissions to access the page, you might cause more aggravation by showing more error dialogues. So be mindful. And this is currently in preview in our app. General availability will be in a minor update. And these actions are not yet supported in inline validation bar. But coming soon, there will be a blog post about user experience guidelines to help you how to write actionable error messages. And talking about actions, this is a call to action for you to migrate to modern views. So views are just lists that have predefined filters. And previously, we defined these legacy views as actions on the role center. Show of hands, how many of you are still using legacy views? Okay. Not that many, which is fantastic. But legacy views are being deprecated in favor of the new modern views, which were introduced 4 years ago. So I'd like to point you to a guide how to do and how to go and migrate your legacy views. So as I mentioned, these are actions on the role center. So all you need to do is just query all your role center pages and then look for actions that pass the run page view. So this was the legacy way of how to define view, and it relied on a lot of platform magic of how to make this happen. So you can just cut this and remove it from your role center, and you can see I have two, which is copy-pasted, obviously. And we can use the more declarative method that we can define it on the place where on the page that it filters, which in our case is the shoe list page. So in here, in the page we have a new section which is called views, and we can just paste this, and it's no longer an action; it's a view. And since we're already defining it in a place where on the page that it's filtering, we no longer need this, and then we can just pass the filters. So it's easy as that. And what you can do additionally to improve the experience for the user is that now you have the possibility to define a different layout for each view. So you can just show the data for this particular view that you wanted. So remember, legacy views are deprecated. They will be removed soon. And make sure to migrate to modern views.
That's a great call to action, and it's also the closing note for the first part of our session, which was the features and changes that you already have out in version 22. But now we move on to the second part and talk about new exciting things that are coming into Business Central that we're working on from the lab. Of course, they're subject to change. But exciting things, and I hope you enjoy hearing about them. So drum roll to the first feature that we're introducing is Rich Text Editor. Now, this is maybe not new to you. Woo, yeah, let's see some excitement. You have seen the Rich Text Editor in the email editor. You've seen it now recently in the marketing text generator throughout our different demos. You've really wanted to use it and couldn't. Well, now is the time that we're making the Rich Text Editor widely available for AL developers to use in any pages. There's a few conditions, but let's go into the product. Let's go make an extension where I use this editor in a page. So let's say I want to use the Rich Text Editor to add rich comments to my customer card. Of course, how I do that is I will define an extension to the customer page where I will add a new field that resides alone in a group with two properties that are quite important. Extended data type will be rich content, and multiline will be set to true. So let's reiterate. The three conditions for you to see the rich text editor in any page are to add a field with two properties, extended data type, rich content, and multiline set to true that resides alone in a group. Well, that's looking good. Of course, if I'm adding this new field to the page, then I also have to head over and add it to the table. So I will also extend my customer table with this new field that is rich text comment of type blob. Now, just a second on that, on why it should be blob. Of course, you can also edit as a text, but when it comes to text, we have this 2048 character limit that we put into our database. And then, since we are persisting this type of rich text content in HTML format, it can very easily exceed that limit. So using a blob gives you the opportunity to actually write longer and richer text. How would that look in the product? Well, I'm here in my customers list. If I open a customer card, I added the comment after the general group, and here it is. You can easily use it, write a comment. So this is my favorite customer, and I want my sales associates to really be able to see that this is my favorite customer, so make the font size huge for them. And then why is it my favorite customer? Because he always pays on time. I don't have any remaining amounts from him. And that's a huge green flag, so highlight that in green. Oops, lost my selection. There, pays on time without the P. Of course, we're in 2023. I must add an emoji. There, rich text that you can add to your card and use it anywhere you want. So this is good, but when it comes to blobs, there's also something that we have to note on how you read and write these blobs into your databases, into your tables, and that is, let's start here first. How do we read it? Well, I'll just add a page trigger on after get current record, which will get the comment from the customer comments. And again, to write this over, I will add inside the field a trigger on validate, and I have a snippet on this, which will set the comment and modify the record. So let's go. The customer comments is actually a code unit that I added, and let's go see how these functions or methods are implemented. So I'm inside my code unit. We're first looking at the get comment. So how we read blobs is, of course, using streams. You have to first calculate the field, which was the rich text comment that I added to the table, create your in-stream, assign a text encoding. Please make sure to use the same text encoding when you're reading and writing the blob, and then you will read. Similarly, when it comes to writing this or setting the comment, we create the outstream with that same text encoding and just write this out. Of course, I modified my record over here in the page, so I did need to do it in my code unit. And yeah, that's about it for what we have for Rich Text Editor. But of course, we have more things to show. And the second thing that we want to show you from the lab is Tell Me on mobile. We hope to see some excitement. So when it comes to navigation in Business Central, Tell Me on mobile allows you to search for pages and reports on your mobile devices. It gives your users access to any page from their Business Central mobile app, on their phones, on their tablets, in the same way as the desktop version of the popular search or Tell Me feature, as we call it. So as I was saying, when it comes to navigation, and you want to do it in the desktop version, there's so many ways you can do it. At least that's what I think. When you're in your role center, of course, you have your navigation menus, you have your bookmark pages which you visit very often. If you're feeling a bit exploratory, you could head over to your role explorer and see what pages are available for you. And then you can get a bit more curious, go into what is available for all roles and different roles in different departments, and do that. But if you don't have any time, of course, what we're using very often ourselves and what we see you using is the search or tell me feature, which you can access here in the product menu bar or with the keyboard shortcut Alt-Q. So I can search for sales, and I get so many results, pages and tasks and reports and so on. If I want to do the same thing on mobile, well, I open the mobile app, and this is what I see. I have my cues. I can click on them to get to the pages or reports that they link to. And then I also have, of course, my navigation bar with my bookmark pages. But if I want to get to anything other than that, well, good luck to me. Good luck to you if you're trying this challenge, because it's really hard. So now that we add Search Me to mobile devices, what you can actually do in your mobile devices is head over. You can go to your navigation pane, and we have added this new search field. You just click on that, and it opens Tell Me on mobile. I can, again, search for sales, look at all the pages that pop up, all the reports, and access them the same way that I do in desktop. Of course, you'll only see the pages that you have permissions to, same as you do in desktop. And then if you want to, let's say, find one of these pages more often, we also allow you to bookmark any page from Tell Me. And of course, it's available in the navigation pane, but also you can use the keyboard shortcut to open it up anytime. Maybe that is not very relevant to the phone, but Tell Me is, of course, as I said, also available on tablet, where you typically have a Bluetooth keyboard added or connected to it more often. And on tablet, of course, as I said, either Alt-Q, or you have this new icon on the top header where you can open Tell Me again and have that very similar UI that you've already seen on desktop. I think it's a bit small, but I think you can see it. Okay, so that is Tell Me on desktop. Very exciting things.
Yeah.
And on to Vasil for something else that we're introducing or working on.
Yeah. Last but not least, in the next release, we're working on supporting the, come on, barcode scanner. Yes. Come on.
Come on.
So how barcodes are input today in Business Central are either typed manually, which is error-prone and very slow, or through some third party, which are not really as performing this natively. So we are working on supporting native barcode scanning capabilities, where we are utilizing the camera on the device to scan and parse the barcode. So let's see what it takes just to use this feature. So I'm on a page that I have just a single field, and the only thing that you need to do is annotate the field with an extended data type, and then we see a new one, barcode. And it's easy as that. So since this is from the lab and the setup is very complicated, I've recorded videos and pictures, so you gotta trust me that it works. But if you don't, like, you have to wait to try it out. So now we see a new action next to the field, which is similar to drill down and assist edit. But when you click on it, the camera is invoked, and now you see a different canvas in the middle, which you can point to a barcode scanner, to a barcode, and it scans the barcode, parses it, and inputs to the field. So let's see that one more time, how fast and snappy it is. So you go, you click. If you point directly at a barcode, it's easy as that. It's so good. So if we want to go and stack multiple fields of barcodes, and what would happen, we'd see the same thing, like action associated to the field, and you click on the action, scan the barcode, it's input on the field that is associated to. But this is just by annotating a field with barcode. What if you want to do some more cool AL logic, like invoke request barcodes programmatically? So let's imagine that we want to put a queue tile on the roll center that you can click, and then you can request a barcode. Scan the barcode and use that barcode as a starting point for more data entry on a device. So if I go to Visual Studio, and such as every other capability which we have so far, camera provider, location provider, we're adding a new one, which is the barcode scanner provider. So you need to add a dependency to this in your project, and now we can start working with it. So as I said, going to create a queue part. I'm going to add a queue, which I would like to use to trigger and request a barcode. So in order to be able to use this, you of course need to declare a variable of the provider, and you need to initialize it as soon as possible, which would be on the open page. So you can only do that if the barcode scanner is available, and it will be available on the devices, meaning on phone and tablet. So I have created my instance, and I can go ahead in my, on the action trigger, on the queue tile, I can go and use this barcode scanner provider, and then I can request a scan. So what this will do, this will open the camera experience as we saw, and when the barcode scanner will be scanned and parsed and available, it invokes this trigger, this method on the barcode scanner provider where we pass the barcode value and the format of the barcode. So I can just create a record and then open the page. So let's see how this looks like. So we have the queue. I can press the queue and then see the same experience as it was for the field. And then we can open the page. So possibilities are endless. You think of how you want to use this. We're also exploring the possibility of supporting hardware barcode scanners as well. So we're glad to hear your feedback on this. So today we saw a lot of features that we introduced in version 22, boosting productivity through using access keys with key tips and personalization of actions in parts, also analysis view. And then we talked about actionable error messages, how you can help your users to be more productive. And remember, for those of you who haven't already, migrate to modern views, as legacy views will be deprecated. And then we saw a lot of new features that are from the lab, such as rich text editor, that's coming to you now, and page search on mobile, and of course, barcode scan. So that was for our agenda for today. We have some time for Q&A. You have any questions? Okay. Yes.
Just a question on actionable items.
Yeah. Error messages.
Errors. You know how the passing the method is a literal string? Will that be changing to the actual function name so that it can be searched with AL Explorer?
I'm not aware of...
Can you reiterate the question? Because I don't think it was very loud. No, maybe we can say it. Vasil heard it. Yeah,
so the question was whether these will be supported through AL Explorer. Yeah. So I'm not aware of that, but the ideas website is open. So if you see, you can create an idea for it and get enough app votes for it. Yeah, of course. Okay. We have a t-shirt for you too.
Okay. When the Tell Me is available on the mobile, can we disable it?
That's a good question. That is something that we actually thought about. We're considering putting Tell Me into feature management, but if you want us to be a bit more granular than that, would that be specific to users or just completely disable it for everyone? We're looking forward to hearing your feedback because this is still something that we're working on.
Okay, because sometimes we want to, just a fixed, functionality for a certain user. That's why we want to disable it and just keep it that way.
Yeah,
so it would be good to have that.
And, yeah.
We are going to be available after the session in the booth. So for any additional questions and feedback, you can reach us there. We don't have more time.
I think
yes, so we would like to thank you for your attention.